This is Tanya from South Street Cookies, and in this video we're going to talk about how to glue together a broken sugar cookie with royal icing. Now this works best if you have a clean break like the one I have here, where there aren't lots of little pieces and it's just one big chunk broken off from the rest. So to start with, you're just going to take your flood consistency royal icing, whatever icing you're using to flood the top of the cookie, and just put some where the cookie broke off and then glue it together. You don't need a whole lot, and I was actually a little sloppy here, and so I took my scribe and I'm going to wipe off a little bit of the excess from the sides of the cookie. And then from here, I'm just going to gently set it down. I am working with this cookie on its own little tray because I don't want to move it around a whole lot through this whole process until it's fully dry. Next, right away, I'm adding some more icing on top of that seam just to make sure that it's really sturdy and stays together. And then next, I'm going to go ahead and outline the rest of the cookie, and I'm going right over that seam with the outline. And then I'm going to let this dry for just a few minutes. I want that seam to be crusted over before I flood the rest of the cookie. Looking at my video timestamps, I let it dry for about 3 minutes, and then now I'm going to flood the rest of the cookie. And then from this point on, it's pretty much the same as flooding any other cookie. You just need to be mindful that it is broken, so you need to be gentle and not move it around too much, which is why I have it on its own tray and I'm not moving it around from like my workstation back to the tray. I flooded right over that seam and I filled it nice and full. If the icing was thinner, you might see like a bump where you had the seam, but because the flood is filled nice and full, it camouflages where the seam was placed earlier. I let that dry for 2 hours before I came back to finish the rest of the details on the cookie. Again, I'm just being extra mindful that I don't want to break that end of the cookie off while the icing is still wet, and so I let it dry a little longer than I typically would before I do any other steps. I feel comfortable rotating the cookie, but at this point I would not pick it up and move it anywhere else. Okay, so now it is the next day. I wanted to show you how sturdy this cookie is now. It's been drying for about 18 hours, and you can't see from the top where that seam is. If you flip it over, you can see a little bit of icing, but again, I was a little sloppy. You can make it more conspicuous than this, but that tip of the tail is not going anywhere. I'm going to shake it from the tail, and you can see it's not coming off. So the icing dried, it's holding together. I'm not worried about any breakage if I were to package it and put it in a box with other cookies. I often get asked why I don't just eat the cookie, and that's because I don't make cookies for myself, and so if I can, I'm going to fix it. That way, if I'm in a pinch and don't have any extra cookies, this can be included in an order, or I can take it to a market or give it away to friends or family, and that way, in my opinion, it's not wasted.